Salve ragazzi, è arrivata un'altra nuova puntata del Calice Nero, oggi con un'altra band super speciale. Prima appunto di chiamare i grandi Mister Monstrosity con appunto Lee Harrison, grandissimo batterista. Ci saranno delle nuove puntate, nuove presentazioni, preparatevi a un qualcosa di apocalittico, tutto per maggio, fine maggio, giugno. Maggio partiamo on the road appunto con i jumpscare, quindi si parte dall'Ungheria, dalla Romania per andare in 2/3 date, giusto? Sbaglio?
Nel totale sono 5 date, noi ci sentiremo all'inizio del tour, diciamo la data 0,
Okay.
poi faremo una sorta di briefing quando si torna, in modo tale da darti il prima e il dopo. Ringraziamo tutte le persone che si sono già collegate col nostro podcast. Ricordiamo che siamo su YouTube, su Twitch, ma senza indugiare oltre presentiamo sul Calice Nero Lee Harrison from Monstrosity. Hello, Lee, and thank you for accepting basically our request to do this interview with us. For us, it's a very true honor because we are both fans of the band, but we have been following your band since a long time. So will be not only an interview, but basically a chat, and we will go deeper and deeper in the art and music and stuff about Monstrosity. And thanks for your time, basically, first of all.
What's up, buddies? How we doing? What's my sound here?
Really messing with the camera. In Italy, it's really warm weather. I don't know in your parts of the world which the spring is starting, or more summer, more fresh. I don't know. So basically, we try to. Wearing black clothes would be tough in the summer. But are you fine? How everything goes in America, basically?
It's hot here for sure. It's definitely it's spring break, but it's definitely more getting summer. Definitely getting summertime.
Because we see some restarting about touring and stuff. How is the situation of touring live shows in United States? Ok, caduta la linea. No, io ho chiesto com'è la situazione dei concerti in America, perché attualmente sono stati la nazione più attiva per quanto concerne i concerti. Maestro, poi vedi se lì ti risponde se rientra. Avrà toccato qualcosa. Come sempre il bello della diretta, cioè non ci facciamo mancare mai niente. No, comunque, mentre ritorna lì in diretta, la puntata che faremo la settimana prossima già è la data 0 del tour, praticamente arriviamo un giorno prima, quindi raccontiamo tutte le cose e poi ci sentiremo dopo, quindi facciamo 2 puntate sostanzialmente.
Mi sa che apri anche la pagina Facebook del canale.
Ok.
Okay,
here we are. No problem about it. Anyway, you are hearing us well. The sound is okay.
Calling me like that. Somebody called in and I couldn't hear you. So we're gonna blame that one on Al Ditton.
Okay.
Well, we're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. A little bit lower the volume, so I'm gonna raise up the fader of the volume from from the program here. So basically, you hear us, me and the Maestro, well, so we can go further and start the interview. As always, guys, those interviews with guests from outside Italy are the same. We will place the question in Italian. I will answer and translate so everyone can follow the interview. So I will let the Maestro, the bad Maestro, do the first question. Vai, Maestro.
Allora, Harrison creò i Monstrosity. Domanda che può essere scontata, domanda che può essere banale, però lì ci puoi portare indietro con i Monstrosity? Come è partito tutto questo meccanismo appunto dei Monstrosity? E a livello artistico, quanto siete riusciti a crescere in così poco tempo e come siete riusciti ad avere questa fama allucinante che meritate completamente?
Okay, his questions about the beginning of Monstrosity, since you was the founder of the project. How is the inspiration back in the days to start a project like this, and how are nowadays the things that keep you doing what you do even after all those years, the passion, the inspiration, the music. Can you tell us about the roots of the band, but also the modern times of the band too?
Sure. So in the beginning, I would say since I was 7 years old, I've been into wanting to make music pretty much for a career. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think I knew pretty much at 7 years old that this was what I wanted to do after seeing Kiss and becoming aware of them. And just, through my teenage years, just, got more and more serious about it. And by, I don't know, when I turned 18, I pretty much packed my band, packed my drums, moved to Miami, hooked up with some friends down there, and eventually ended up in Malevolent Creation. And it looked like things were serious with Malevolent Creation. We were doing I did the second demo with Malevolent Creation, and then things were moving towards a record deal. I had met Scott Burns. I introduced the band to Scott Burns at a show in Tampa. Same with Cynic. I introduced Cynic to Scott Burns at the same show. I had been to Morris Sound a few times, the studio, and it looked like things were, going to take off for Malevolent Creation, but then things didn't work out with Malevolent Creation with me and Phil. I still, Phil's a good dude, and only wish the best for him now, but pretty much that, same drive, the same focus where I was headed, just continued with Monstrosity pretty much. In the early days, we were close to a record deal, and that was our goal at the time, is to get a record deal. And so with Monstrosity, we finally were able to achieve that.
And what is your relationship with the Tampa scene, the death metal scene at that time? A lot of bands came here. I think also the shows were great.
Well, there were two separate scenes. There was like the South Florida scene, which was Cynic and Malevolent and Hellwitch. And then there was the Tampa scene, which was, the Morbid Angels, the Atheist, even Death. Even though they're from Orlando, a couple of the members lived in Tampa, and they were always in and out of Tampa. So there was kind of, and those bands, the Tampa bands, had record deals, Obituary, so we were kind of, South Florida was kind of behind the times as far as getting record deals, but we were still putting out good music and headed that same direction. And it was kind of an answer to the Bay Area. The Bay Area thrash scene out in San Francisco was popular, and we were kind of a response to that, to be even heavier, the Florida thing.
Okay, so basically some scenes that basically are forward and the other one influencing each other, basically. So you got a lot of a good pot of influences, because you look after for example, the Bay Area scene about the violence, the Tampa. So there is like a trademark of sound of the areas.
Yeah,
is it
sure.
Correct? Okay. Let me translate this, because it would be great also to go in depth at this part. But the Maestro has a lot of question about all this kind of stuff, also the production and stuff like that. So I will go further in translating it, and we will jump right after the translation in the next question.
Ok.
Praticamente la sua carriera nasce a 17 anni, dove praticamente il sogno di suonare, no? Che è quello che ci spinge tutti quanti a intraprendere questa carriera, e sostanzialmente lui è stato influenzato dal fatto che ha deciso poi di trasferirsi, una volta acquisita più consapevolezza, di trasferirsi poi in un altro posto dove ha entrato nei Malevolent Creation. Dopodiché Morris Sound, il giro, la conoscenza, però con il Malevolent Creation è rimasto più o meno in rapporti, ma comunque ha deciso di formare la sua band Monstrosity, che ha poi avuto la possibilità di firmare un contratto discografico che per l'epoca comunque era una cosa molto particolare. E io ho chiesto com'era la scena underground. La scena underground, lui fa riferimento ai trademark che c'erano prima, quindi Bay Area, ha nominato ovviamente Tampa, e quindi ho chiesto com'era l'influenza delle scene di quel tempo. C'era un grande vivaio di band, tante persone, quindi praticamente lui si trovava sempre in questo centro nevralgico, perché ricordiamo che comunque lui si è trasferito da comunque la parte della più o meno floridiana, no? Alla parte, diciamo, dove c'erano ovviamente gruppi come Morbid Angel, eccetera eccetera, e quindi sostanzialmente dischi che comunque hanno dato un certo peso alla scena death metal, e coi Monstrosity si è visto la concretizzazione, quindi il concreto di un progetto che comunque lui ha iniziato da quando era ragazzo e che non ha lavorato tanto bene con Malevolent Inclination. Infatti ricordiamo che comunque Lee Harrison, ex membro è stato live member dei Obituary, ma Malevolent Creation maggiormente, Atheist pure, Submission e tante altre situazioni, e quindi fondamentalmente con Monstrosity ha avuto la sua dimensione. Meanwhile, there is a Marco say Monstrosity the best, he said, and also he refers about your albums like the best one, the best records he brought. Basically, Marco love your band so much that they saying that you made the best records out there. Okay, Maestro, what you want to ask to Mr. Lee before going
okay,
further?
allora, nel 1992 uscì il capolavoro, perché ancora tuttora io lo ripeto, veramente è un capolavoro vicino,
Imperial Doom.
Imperial Doom,
Okay.
sotto la Nuclear Blast. Quindi tu devi descrivere Imperial Doom attraverso un libro, una poesia con i pattern di batteria che sei andato a creare. Se lo dovessi riregistrare, lo faresti come se fosse una colonna di un film particolarmente strano?
Okay, the question is very weird and particular. I hope you can enjoy it. The Maestro is asking about what, in his opinion, is your first masterpiece, which is Imperial Doom 1992 under Nuclear Blast. This question is about describing the composition, but also the creation of the patterns of the drums, using some lyrics and poetry, some weird atmospheres, what you want to achieve as power and violence in that kind of basically mood that you create with this very straightforward and brutal album. I want to add this term to the vision of the Imperial Doom. And also, in his opinion, if you have to choose a kind of film, a movie, to be featured as a soundtrack of basically one of the songs of the album, which film you want to choose? Also describing it as always in a drummer point of view.
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure. Let me think on that some more. As far as the creation of the album, Imperial Doom, we were younger and just hungry. I mean, we were practicing 6 nights a week, and we were dedicated to making an album. We knew we were going to make an album. We were dedicated to it, and luckily, we had found Morris Sound in Tampa, and because there was talk about using Harris Johns at one point, and I don't know if that would have involved us flying to Germany or wherever he was, but we discovered Morris Sound, and that just made so much more sense. I really credit Morris Sound for creating the scene, because that's where so many bands recorded there, and that was really, they had stepped up the productions, the double bass you could hear a lot clearer and more powerful, and it was just a new day in production for metal, and so we wanted to be a part of that. like I said, we were kind of young at the time, and so we had our own vision of, you know, how it should be. But yeah, we were pretty happy with it. We had to deal with Nuclear Blast, and we had the studio there in Tampa that we went to, Morrisound, and we actually moved the band from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa at around that time, just because we wanted to be a part of the Tampa scene more than we felt. You know, Cynic had kind of moved on to more technical, jazzy situation, and we just wanted to be more part of the Tampa scene, which was more of a brutal thing. And we kind of wanted to, you know, we didn't mind the technical stuff, but we wanted to combine it with the brutal and keep everything brutal and heavy and punching and violent and all the good stuff.
So your vision about the album is to go to the Morris sound, because at that time they basically did a big step for put an higher production, and just because also about the involving of yourself in the Tampa scene. How was the welcome of the Tampa scene for a band basically from another city, Fort Lauderdale? I don't know the distance between the two cities, but
it's about 4 hours.
Okay. How was the welcome of the people, the crowd, the bands at that time?
Good. You know, we connected with Deicide. We played some shows with Deicide around town. We played a show with Obituary. When I was in Malevolent, we had brought Obituary down to South Florida for a show. So we were friends with those guys already. Deicide, I had met Steve and the guys at a Destruction Cro-Mag show in St. Petersburg. So I had met them, and we hit it off. We were becoming friends, and really there was, you know, it was kind of slower start, you know, but there was no like real any kind of war or any kind of bad anything like that. It was all good, really.
Yeah, basically those bands and your band started the whole movement. That also here in Italy there were bands that also we interviewed like that in the 90s that had a lot of respect for the Morris sounds and the Tampa scene, that they want to be like that. So your best achievement as Monstrosity, all the other band, but because I'm talking to you, I'm referring most of the time about the Monstrosity project. It's about the creating of a trademark, which is really awesome, because even if outside that kind of death metal, that during the years it evolves in a very different way, always people look after your bands, a little bit of that too, because of Morris sound in most of things, but also Malevolent Creation and also those Tampa bands that they say, oh, I want to be like that. Are you aware of all those influences that you guys made through the years, also from bands from Italy, for example? Are you aware of the weight?
Sure, a lot of people, appreciate those early, especially the first couple albums, I will say at one point, Morris sound became a bad word, in the mid 90s. A lot of bands in New York, Immolation, Incantation, those kind of bands rejected Morris sound. It was too clean, too whatever for them, and so there was at some point it became like, a sound, that like, but it's a world-class studio. I don't think you can really blame the studio. I think you can blame the bands for not being more experimental and not trying for new things,
I agree with that, because basically a studio can improve something that is already there. They cannot make something really strange, because they put their trademark, but if the product is not good, will be a bad product with a great production, but still is a bad product. So this is my vision. I don't know if you agree with me or
and a lot of times the bands would come in there wanting that sound, so that's what they gave them, They wanted that production, so that Morris sound production. They would tell Scott Burns or Jim Morris or whoever that, make it sound like the Obituary, make it sound like the Deicide or whatever, so that it's kind of how it, you know, started to sound, and that's the sound they were achieving. But, you know, definitely later in the 90s, it became more of a, you know, not so stock thing.
Okay.
It became good again, you know. I don't know how else to say it. But yeah.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, let me translate all these beautiful things that we said to the guys, because there are a lot of guys that also are greetings, hello guys, a huge hug to Mr. Lee, Mark again. He is really one of the great fans that you have. Yeah, he's really love your project. So please give a virtual hug to Lee. Of course, we try, even if we are so distant to connect together. Ok, ma allora Maestro, praticamente la situazione riguardante l'album, che abbiamo fatto un bellissimo excursus di Imperial Doom, tra l'altro bellissimo il canotto in diretta, a me fanno morire quando si dicono queste cose, perché tra Paul che yeah, basically we are saying that death metal and dogs are a combination of things really really huge. Also Paul as his dog during the live stream when we interview Cannibal Corpse. So dog and death metal. Great. Okay, by the way, I will continue to translate it. Ok, praticamente lui dice che a livello di roba poetica, di concetti, lui ti sa dire che loro erano molto focalizzati perché provavano veramente tanto, però il loro obiettivo era di creare qualcosa di marcio, di violento, di incazzato, di brutale, anche di tecnico, ma non tecnico inteso troppo tecnico, insomma. Qualcosa che comunque rispecchiasse il sound comunque di Tampa. Loro da Fort Lauderdale, che io qui sono più o meno 4 ore, si sono poi trasferiti a Tampa proprio, e ho chiesto com'è stata anche le band, il benvenuto, ho detto che tutti si aiutavano, si volevano bene, c'era qualche piccolo scazzo, ma non erano degli scazzi, non erano guerre, insomma. E quello che deve molto la questione concept, più che descrivere attraverso quello che è stato il Morris Sound di Tampa, che praticamente ha creato un trademark che io ho detto, pure per esempio gli Electro Cushion che abbiamo avuto, e salutiamo Michele, grandissimo, che tra l'altro ho visto anche dal vivo, che loro volevano quel sound alla Morris Sound. Io ho chiesto anche se loro sono coscienti di tutto quello che hanno dato, Monstrosity e tutti gli altri gruppi, anche infatti per esempio loro prima si scambiavano anche le date insieme, comunque tutta una bella cosa di connessione. Quindi praticamente loro sono coscienti, però poi ovviamente alcune band hanno iniziato a rigettare il suono del Morris Sound, soprattutto band newyorkesi, perché si andava troppo a standardizzare. E io ho fatto una domanda, ho detto, ma secondo te un cattivo prodotto, anche prodotto bene, scusate il gioco di parole, rimane comunque un cattivo prodotto? Lui diceva sì, perché molte band poi hanno iniziato a dire voglio suonare come quello, voglio suonare come quello, e poi praticamente non hanno poi dato un contributo particolare alla situazione, che poi si copiavano gli Obituary, copiavano, non lo so, altre band. Quindi praticamente lui dice poi Morris Sound più avanti hanno avuto un piccolo declino, ma poi sono risaliti. Quindi lui, più che parlarti del concept, non è che non ti vuole parlare del concept perché non lo sa dire, perché lui proprio nella creazione, la brutalità e la questione, poi dice per quanto riguarda la questione film eccetera, l'ho detto all'inizio proprio, è una domanda talmente difficile che in questo momento non ti sa dare una risposta secca, perché dovrebbe starci a pensare ore, perché l'hai un po' spiazzato, diciamo. Quindi come al solito Maestro, le domande sono sempre ottime. Ovviamente incoraggiamo gli utenti a fare delle domande se vogliono a Mr. Lee qua in diretta con noi. So for the people that are watching, the episode will stay online, of course, after the live interview, but guys, you can make your question to Mr. Lee, and I think that he has a good proposition to answer it. Okay, I'm starting to invent some words, but it's really late, you know. I try to give my best to translate in real time everything. Okay, another question that I want to make about Monstrosity, about the first time, I'm talking about the fact that in 1996 and 1999 there will be 2 releases, Millennium and Dark Purity. Can you describe, Mr. Lee, the evolution of Monstrosity and what basically was the mood? Because you say that in the first album, which is Imperial Doom, you want to achieve the most brutal and aggressive violence via your death metal.
Right.
the next album would be the same, or basically you were aimed about something different about the moods and the writing? And about the composition, the everything you do, the songwriting, are a result of one member, or basically you rehearse at that time, you rehearsed it together, exchanged ideas together, and basically make the whole music together? I don't know if I explained me in the right way.
Okay, well, with Imperial Doom, with the production, we felt the drums were too loud and were dominating the sound too much. You know, it's a long story, but yeah. So, and then at the time, like I was saying before, we moved the band from Fort Lauderdale area, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. We moved the band to Tampa. And John Rubin, the other guitar player, didn't want to move, is what basically, he told us he was going to move, but then when it came down to it, he didn't want to move. So we ended up with a new guitar player, Jason Morgan, and he was from Tennessee, and he had a lot more capabilities. You know, he was just a phenomenal player. He could play pretty much anything I could throw at him, you know, and so we kind of stepped up the technicality a little bit on Millennium, just because we had that guitar player that could handle playing like that, you know. And so like songs like Manic was me and Mark Van Erp, the bass player, from Imperial Doom. Fatal Millennium, Devious Instinct, those are Jason Morgan riffs with some of my, like Fatal Millennium in particular, some of my riffs thrown in together. Dream Messiah, same thing, where like I have stuff and he has stuff and we kind of merge it.
Okay, let's say a lot of teamwork, exchanging ideas together.
Yeah. And a song like Mirrors of Reason, the drums were written first and then the guitars were added to that. A song like Slaves and Masters, the guitars were written first and the drums were added. So there was nothing set, you know, in one way. It just, we didn't have a certain thing. So that's how Millennium was. And with the production on Millennium, we wanted the guitars to be more heard, and the drums didn't come across as powerful as on Imperial Doom. So with the third album, we found a better balance with the production. The drums were more powerful, and that was kind of the perfect balance between the first two albums with the third record. So the third record was the first album that we were, you know, like 100% proud of as far as, you know, the productions.
Okay, so basically step by step to get the best thing possible at that time. Okay, very cool about it, because when we listen something that we like and we love to listen, and we focus on the songs and structure and stuff, we of course do not know all this kind of behind the scenes. So it's good to know, even if a lot of people, me myself too, consider, for example, Imperial Doom a great album to start. I was one on my first album that started my journey into the American death metal movement back in the days. And also it's good too that you explain how was the steps that you were made to be satisfied about your music. So it's very interesting about that kind of production, because I think I see the three album as for example, three in the same spots. No one is better than the other, but basically they have a lot of things to say in a different way. So like a kind of triptych. I don't know if I can explain it well. So for this reason, I asked you about the songwriting, the production, just to have more about the feelings that because you made the album, of course. So it's good things. And I think that I want to ask you about this period, and I will translate the rest of the question. Of course, Jason Gobel, as he explained in the various interviews, is it correct that he was like a session member, not a permanent member, or he was involved like a permanent member when he was tracking Imperial Doom?
Okay, well, before Jason, we had Rob Barrett, who's now in Cannibal Corpse. He was in Solstice at the time, and we were trying to get Rob to join the band. And he stayed dedicated to Alex Marquez in Solstice. So we kind of knew we needed somebody else. We didn't have to have somebody else, but we felt that we wanted to round out the second guitar, situation of the band. If you remember the Human album from Death, Paul and Sean were doing, it was Cynic was our bass player, Mark Van Erp, was originally in Cynic, and then he was out of the band, and they brought in Tony Choi, and so it was Tony Choi, Paul and Sean, and Jason Goebel was Cynic. Well, Paul and Sean ended up doing the Human album, and Tony went and did the Pestilence album. So Jason Goebel was kind of on his own with nothing to do. And when we were thinking of a guitar player who we could use, we approached Jason Goebel because he was an old friend of ours. We knew him from Mark Van Erp being in Cynic, he knew those guys, and I knew them too. I was hanging around. And the whole plan for Cynic all that time was to they were going to go do those albums, and then they were going to regroup and be Super Cynic, and like it was going to, like by those guys doing those other albums, it was going to bring more attention to Cynic when they finally got back together. So their plan was always to go do those albums and then come back together to be Cynic. They were more metal back then. They weren't as jazzy,
Okay. So basically, they were involved in those recordings, but basically when we were not played for Cynic, just like a kind of transition.
Yeah, they were doing it as a session with, Paul and Sean were doing Death as a session thing, knowing that they were going to come back and do Cynic. That was their plan, was to get the spotlight on Cynic, because Cynic had said they had tried to get a record deal, but nobody would sign them, so the plan was to, use Death, use Pestilence.
Okay, for promoting their project, basically.
Bring the spotlight to Cynic, and it worked. They ended up doing their, they finally got signed, and that ended up happening after all. So, and we weren't really so worried about it, Jason Goebel ended up writing with us, like Ceremonial Void, the song was the last song written before the studio, and so he was there for that, and we used some of his riffs, and he ended up doing one show after the album, but we were looking forward, and we wanted to find a guitar player that was going to be in the band, so.
Yeah, you were looking for, of course, someone that would be 100% dedicated to Monstrosity.
Yeah, and again, we were in Tampa, and he lived in Miami, South Miami at the time, so East Miami. I don't even know what you call it. The Everglades.
a little bit of distance, basically. Ok. Ok, mi sono murato dove sbaglio. Praticamente la questione della mia domanda che ho fatto lì è sostanzialmente riguardante il loro secondo album Millennium e il loro terzo album In Dark Purity. Rispetto a Imperial Doom, io ho chiesto comunque più o meno qual è stata l'evoluzione sostanzialmente che li ha portati dal 92, ovviamente scavalcando le demo, 92, 96, 99. Io li considero una sorta di trittico, cioè li vedo tutti quanti allo stesso piano, perché c'è un'evoluzione oggettiva. Praticamente lui dice che più che altro la questione è che hanno poi sviluppato attraverso un teamwork di scambio di idee, quindi alcune parti si iniziano dalla batteria, altre alle chitarre, eccetera, eccetera. Hanno cercato comunque di limare comunque i problemi che hanno avuto nei primi due album, dove loro a livello di produzione non erano contenti, perché in alcune parti mancavano di mordente, secondo lui la parte di batteria, altre parti c'erano delle questioni di suono che non lo convincevano. Con il terzo album praticamente hanno trovato finalmente quella dimensione di dire siamo soddisfatti della produzione che vogliamo dare, del suono che vogliamo dare. Quindi sostanzialmente la loro ricerca sonora, la loro evoluzione più che altro non è stata tanto nel songwriting, ma è stata anche nella scelta dei suoni, nel management dei suoni proprio, della produzione, del suono, del songwriting che facevano insieme e tutto il resto. poi ho chiesto riguardante la situazione di quello che si dice appunto riguardante Jason Gobel, che lui ha detto in tante interviste che ha aiutato la band nelle registrazioni di Imperial Doom, ma non è mai stato parte dei Monstrosity. Dice che praticamente i membri che ha citato prima dei Cynic si prestavano a fare delle session, per esempio abbiamo parlato del disco che hanno fatto dei Death, Pestilence, insomma, per promuovere la loro band. Quindi loro praticamente provavano a fare un disco, provavano ad avere un contratto discografico, non ci riuscivano, e là erano, diceva lui, molto più duri rispetto adesso. Utilizzavano la loro abilità di musicisti per aiutare le band, per poi fermarsi un po' con i Cynic e poi riformarli come tipo supergruppo, insomma, per promuovere il loro gruppo attraverso le attività da session che facevano. In questo caso Jason, che abitava verso Miami, per loro è stato fino forse al primo show dopo la release di Imperial Doom, però comunque volevano un membro che fosse 100% dedicato alla band, e nonostante fossero in rapporto di amicizia con esso, e praticamente c'è stato anche comunque sostanzialmente anche vari membri che sono stati anche nei Cannibal Corpse. Sì. E quindi fondamentalmente Cannibal Corpse, oppure abbiamo detto tanta roba, perché poi c'è stato per esempio Mark che è alle chitarre, che poi è stato anche nei Dayside, oppure comunque musicisti che gravitavano attorno alla scena, e quindi loro attraverso le loro relazioni e amicizie poi hanno finalmente trovato la loro dimensione. Quindi a livello si fa una ricerca sonora, ma anche una ricerca di produzione. Questo poi li ha portati comunque ad avere grossi, secondo me, soddisfazioni e grossi successi, che poi hanno portato loro a poi sviluppare quel trademark Monstrosity che io considero tale, perché questi 3 album li vedo proprio, ve l'ho detto, nello stesso piano, per motivi diversi. Quindi non riesco ad ascoltare il primo senza ascoltare il secondo o il terzo, sostanzialmente. Con questo, Alan, ti lascio sempre a te le domande, così magari possiamo entrare più nel discorso Monstrosity in maniera più viscerale, ecco.
Salutiamo Elvo Tenino City. Allora, lì come è riuscito con il suo modo di suonare e il suo modo di intendere di suonare la batteria in maniera diversa in 2 film? Uno è Spiritual Apocalypse e l'altro The Passage of Existence. Questi 2 dischi come sono riusciti a essere incorporati all'interno dei Monstrosity, all'interno della tecnica, però avere quel senso di freddezza durante l'ascolto? E se dovrebbe immergervi all'interno di un fiume, quale fiume sarebbe indicato verso New York?
Okay. The Maestro is asking about again the concept, the sounds, and basically the songwriting of the last 2 full length, 2007 Spiritual Apocalypse and 2018 The Passage of Existence. In his vision, really poetic about those albums, he's imagining the sound that's been producing by a river. Basically, like just this very brutal river, a lot of violence by the water and stuff like that. Let me just ask you about the composition, the way of you play the drums, the way you started the composition of the songs again, the evolution and stuff like that. Also, which river can be basically flooded inside those 2 records that can create like a tsunami things? I don't know if I explain me, but he's playing with this kind of images, just to make sure to the people the impact that he got from your latest album.
With the last few albums, the focus has been, all the albums, but more, the focus is more on songwriting and creating the song rather than just trying to like show off or come up with fancy riffs. We learned that on In Dark Purity. So the first album was really brutal. Millennium was more technical. So In Dark Purity was the balance of those 2 elements, and we learned that with Millennium, the second album, we'd gone too far with the technicality, the odd time signatures. While we still do them and we like it, we just kind of felt that, you know, it was better to kind of find a balance between the craziness and just the straight ahead brutal stuff. And so with Dark Purity, that was one where we found our rhythm. And then from there, we've kind of just continued in that direction of, you know, focusing more on songwriting. So Rise to Power, Spiritual Apocalypse, Passage of Existence. It's more about songwriting and there's still, you know, brutal, you know, it's, to me, it's the same formula, you know, that we've always done, but, you know, the different studio stuff, tricks, whatever, the technology, the advancement of certain, you know, techniques and the way that production has moved forward help shape that, you know, those songs and those ideas that we've kind of always had.
Okay, and so basically you said that you created some of your own trademark after the third album. That's right. That's correct. Not a trademark. Sorry, a formula. Yes, that was the right word. So focusing on more the songwriting and all the creating, of course, a great song. Not to show off.
I wouldn't call it AC/DC or, you know, because that's what I think of when.
Okay.
You know, it's not like that where we just every song's the same and we just recreate the same song. It's definitely not like that. But we have found our ideas and our boundaries. You know, it's never going to go too far one way or the other. You know, we kind of stick. We have an avenue that we're on, and we kind of stay to that. But it's not like this where it's like AC/DC where we can only do one thing.
Yeah. Of course. But since we already said that basically when you published the third album, you were also satisfied with the production. Basically, you try to be focused more on the songs than basically to make crazy stuff on the guitar. And another part of the song of the question about the song of the last album, the most recent album. Since the Maestro here, but most of the Maestro is an horror fan, you know. If you have to pick one song that you say, oh, this song will be perfect as a soundtrack for a movie, for an horror movie, which song you pick and which movie you pick from the last records?
Yeah,
even outside the horror, if you want a movie in general.
I don't really have much in the way of movies. You know, I like all the standard movies that, you know, the ones that you would know about, you know, but I don't know. I can't really give you exact.
Okay, but you can imagine that someone in the future can pick one of your songs to make like a.
I mean, Perpetual War was always one we felt could have been used somehow. As far as the latest album, I would say, what would be a good one? Slaves to the Evermore. Even, you know, Radiated. It's always a good one. Proselygeist. Yeah.
It's good to know because we want to try to mix art in together, so it's very good to know about it. Okay, let me translate this, and I let the guys also. I want to encourage the guys that are following the live stream, both on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook too. If they can want to make a question for you guys, this is your time. Meanwhile, I translate. Ragazzi, se volete fare una domanda a Illy Harrison dei Monstrosity, avete il tempo di farla mentre io traduco. Se no abbiamo tante domande per lui, comunque lo ringraziamo per la situazione. Riguardante gli ultimi album che tu hai citato, Maestro, The Passage of Existence del 2018 e anche Spiritual Apocalypse del 2007, alla fine loro dopo in Dark Purity hanno non fatto una situazione tipo AC/DC, come ha detto lui, che hanno trovato una formula e sono andati avanti, ma loro si sono focalizzati più su creare belle canzoni che metterci la roba tutta super pazza, super tecnica, cambi di tempo e roba varia. Quindi loro in termini di produzione, in termini di concept, in termini di songwriting sono focalizzati tantissimo, però l'esperienza maturata da Imperial Doom fino a poi in particolare però in Dark Purity, che è stato quello principale, ha fatto rendere loro modo di potersi concentrare più su questo aspetto. E io gli ho chiesto, siccome vediamo benissimo il connubio death metal e film, quale canzone vorresti prendere per quale film? Lui dice che non è tanto appassionato, ne vede pochi. Gli piacciono le tematiche diciamo di quello che tratta, non tanto il settore, diciamo. Però lui ha nominato delle canzoni riguardanti per esempio l'ultimo album, che sono molto particolari, infatti le vado a nominare perché sono anche delle tracce che superano anche i 6 minuti abbondanti. Lui ha parlato della traccia numero 12, Slaves to the Evermore, la traccia numero 3, Radiated, che la traccia numero 3, Radiated, è 4 minuti e 30, la traccia Slaves to the Evermore è circa 7 minuti, però quella che mi ha stupito è stata The Proselygeist, che praticamente è proprio 6 minuti spaccati, che secondo lui potrebbero essere per il loro mood e la loro diversificazione, per quello che danno a livello di sensazione, delle perfette colonne sonore per dei eventuali film. Ho detto, beh, figo, ho detto, guarda, è figo quello che hai detto, perché hai scelto praticamente quello che ritengo le 3 tracce molto particolari, ma non tanto per magari ma per tutto quello che creano attorno alla loro atmosfera. Quindi è molto bello sapere che, nonostante ci sia la situazione che magari non ti sappia rispondere riguardando i film, però ti sa dare una risposta comunque altrettanto cinematografica. Questo poi vuol dire che loro a livello di situazione sono molto concentrati nel dare un'idea giusta a quella che è la musica dei Monstrosity.
Allora, invece, se facciamo entrare i Monstrosity, vediamo un pochettino, in qualche luogo particolarmente folle, pazzo, che ancora tuttora nessuno ha osato scalfire per creare un live. Ma allo stesso tempo, se si va a cercare all'interno di una stagione come l'inverno, e non intendo il freddo, non intendo il ghiaccio, ma intendo quella morbosità che ti dà cupezza, quindi angoscia, pur facendo death metal. Come sono riusciti a bilanciare questa situazione veramente molto particolare, ma allo stesso tempo portare tutto all'interno di un mattatoio?
Ok, molto interessante come domanda. So his question is about basically if you have to pick a particular environment or place that will be something particular, a little bit weird, that maybe can fit a lot the music of Monstrosity, and to organize a very special live situation, what place you want to pick? This is a question that we make sometimes to all the guests. Someone is saying the ruins, someone is saying the forest, some places like that, basically. Some places that you say, oh, this place suits perfect to the music. Which place will be? And also is playing about the atmosphere of your music with seeds, and he said that the music of Monstrosity to the Maestro reminds you the winter, but it's not about the cold. It's about the lights of the winter, and basically the contraposition between the lights, the mood of the winter, but also the ferocity and the brutality of death metal. You agree with him with this kind of season way to see the Monstrosity music?
Sure. I mean, as far as place to play, you know, maybe a volcano somewhere. I don't know. There's many, you know, cool places that we could play. You know, we just like to, you know, our thing has always been to kind of take it out to people who haven't maybe seen a bunch of death metal shows that other bands won't go. You know, back in late 90s, you know, we went to Bogota, Colombia before a lot of bands had ever, like, before even major bands had been there. You know, we were venturing out into, you know, uncharted water as far as, you know, trying to bring metal to fans who didn't normally get metal, you know, Venezuela, Guatemala, places like that, you know, where like, so it's always been our thing to like kind of stretch out and try to, you know, take the gigs that, you know, other bands wouldn't take, you know, there was, you know, I know a lot of bands.
Just to expand, of course, the range of death metal.
Right.
For the audience, of course, I'm speaking.
Yeah. Okay. We'd always hoped to play, you know, in the Middle East and places like that, and try to bring it out that way. I know it's, you know, dangerous or whatever, but you know, we've always wanted to bring it to people who don't normally get it, you know, and go into like farther areas, you know, Southeast Asia, things like that. You know, we've always wanted to do that. So if we ever get the chance to do certain things, you know, we're open to the idea to go, you know. It's a different world today, you know, obviously there's, you know, wars going on and stuff like that. But, so we have to, you know, decide on what the particular offer is, of course, but, you know, we're definitely open to the idea of going to these, you know, kind of farther out places. You know, it just seems like the shows get better the farther out we go. You know, the fans are more rabid. South America's always great, you know, so like we love going down. And
very warm audience. A lot of people that we are going to ask about the audiences, they say that South America were over the top about the warm welcome, people attending the show, and basically they feel the music.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just want to ask you the feedback of Monstrosity touring in Italy. What is your opinion about Italian metalheads? You got the chance.
We've had some good shows in Italy for sure. Milan, Venice, other places around there. We've had some good shows for sure, and you know, we always like to, you know, just tour in general. It's better when we have a tour, you know, instead of flying out for one show only. You know, we like to get in the rhythm of a tour so we can present, you know, because we always have equipment problems when we do one-off shows. You know, so it's always a gamble. So it's nice usually when we're in Italy, we're on a tour, and we've had some good shows, you know.
Okay, so very nice to see that. And if there is a lot of bands from the Middle East playing death metal, and what is your opinion? You're aware about also the influences that your bands and the other bands has with those bands that maybe some years ago they cannot even play those music because of laws and religion and stuff like that. If you say that you were in, for example, Guatemala and stuff like that, you also had the chance to meet people like this, like that. Basically, they were living the moment and say, "Oh, finally, I met a death metal show." Always the response and, in general, the people.
Yeah, Guatemala in particular. When we went down there, we did a show in the kind of the main central city, Guatemala City, and then we did a second show. We ended up driving through the hills, like this crazy drive all through the mountains. And we like end up in this little village, and it was like a Sunday afternoon, and all the people from the village were out in the middle of the square, and they had these massive, huge kites, and they're flying them up in the air. And there's like an immolation kite, like it was huge, and it was just kind of a trip to see, you know, they come into this little village and see a big immolation kite. And You know, it was a smaller show because, you know, it was a small village, but, you know, they were just, you know, the people that were there were into what we were doing and rabid and excited to see a band like ours come to their, you know, area of the world. So, you know, same with Puerto Rico, you know, like we show up there and it's like the fans are crazy because they don't get a lot of shows, you know. It's such a small island, it's hard for bands to come there, you know. And so it's, you know, that's what I, you know, one of the main reasons why I do this, you know, is to go to those kind of places, play shows, you know, and like we did the Ibogue, Colombia, you know, it's like out kind of, it's not just Bogota, it's kind of farther out, you know, Medellin, those kind of shows. You know, it's like, it's great there, you know, we love going out to places.
Great to know that, because it is something that, of course, a band works the entire career to see people, the feedback of the people, the energy. And I want to ask, before translating all this question, I want to ask you the weirdest places that we cannot expect that there is a lot of Monstrosity fan in there, because a lot of people, for example, talks about Japan or Israel or kind of like that, Palestine, stuff like that. But if you have to pick a country that you've been in, really weird, that of course we talked about Guatemala and stuff like that. What you can say, a place that you could not even imagine that there are people that are into your music, and you say, wow, really in this country we got a strong fan base. You can make some example about it.
You know, I would go back to Colombia, you know what I mean? That
Okay.
was one place where we're just, you know, walking down the street, it's like people just, they're so happy to see you, you know, and it's like you know, the shows there are unbelievable. And we were one of the first bands to go there. There was a couple others that went there before us, but not like we were, you know,
And you were
definitely in
the
the
first at the top level,
first place.
basically.
Like Dio didn't even go down there at the time,
Ah,
you know, like, and bigger bands like that weren't even going to those kind of places, you know. Mexico City's always a cool place to go, you know, but they get a lot more shows, and there's more of a market, you know. That's a place where there's actually like a market for the music that we do, you know, like the bootleggers and all that stuff that goes on there makes it more of a you know, people are aware of our band, you know, and we,
okay.
you know, we can
So
go there and
basically,
play.
you open up, if you have to speak with those terms, you kind of open up a new market for death metal music in that kind of places, Guatemala, Colombia, because you go in depth in those places, not only touching the most important cities. You basically you toured a lot in those countries. So it's good to know it, because a lot of people do not know basically how much is great for a band traveling abroad in places that were not touched so much by bands, bigger bands, and you still got that feeling, that positivity, and that such warm welcome. I think that which is the most beautiful things, most beautiful experience for a musician that of course loves the touring and do live shows, because of course there are some projects only for the studio, but I think that a project like Monstrosity have to be seen one time at live just to feel the energy of it. So it was really great to know your opinion. It's very cool that he was one of the first.
Yeah.
Very, very cool about it. Okay, Maestro, I'm translating the question in Italian, and I think that we can make the last question after that. You agree with me? Sei d'accordo? L'ultima domanda dopo. Okay. Okay, so I will translate in Italian, and since we got 1 hour of time during this interview, I hope that you enjoyed the interview. By the way, we will ask you the last question that we always do to all the guests. It's kind of like a ritual for us. So be prepared. By the way, ok, praticamente ti ho chiesto la questione riguardante i posti. Mi dice che più che altro sarebbe per lui facile dire un posto strano. Lui ha immaginato la questione di un vulcano. Però dice alla fine quello che i Monstrosity hanno saputo fare è quello di aprire proprio un mercato al death metal in posti dove non veniva quasi mai toccati. E proprio il fatto di toccare dei posti proibiti come il Medio Oriente, che è pericoloso andare lì, le guerre, eccetera, eccetera, ma anche dei posti strani. Lui ha citato il Guatemala, che sono stati lì, addirittura suonando in dei piccoli villaggi tra le montagne, insomma, una cosa fantastica. Dice che praticamente il vedere la loro musica apprezzata in questi posti così remoti, e molte volte essere stati i primi che hanno fatto dei tour così lunghi in queste zone, prima che lo facessero tutti, per loro è un motivo d'orgoglio, perché è come se avessero dato una sorta di speranza alle persone che lì non riescono a vedere tanti concerti. Quindi più che darti una foresta, una cosa particolare, dici vorrei andare in posti dove nessuno è andato. Io ho chiesto anche riguardando i tour in Italia come la situazione del tour, e ha detto che l'Italia comunque è stato molto, molto bello, e che loro preferiscono fare grossi tour dove entrano più nel mood di stare in giro, piuttosto che dei festival o delle canzoni, cioè delle situazioni mordi e fuggi. Però lui ci tiene a ribadire il fatto che di come la gente ha supportato i Monstrosity nel corso degli anni in quelle zone dove erano impensabili. E io ho chiesto, siccome non ci vuoi dire magari il posto, che tu dici queste cose così, e capiamo il tuo punto di vista, perché poi alla fine il bello del musicista è viaggiare e percepire l'energia che si scambia, no? Tra musicista e pubblico. Qual è il posto che tu non ti saresti mai immaginato? Dice, a parte il Guatemala, la Colombia, perché in Colombia erano trattati veramente da VIP, anche da quanto ho capito anche per strada venivano fermati, insomma c'era una dedizione, e un rispetto per un progetto come loro incredibile, anche perché poi dal vivo le persone erano molto straprese bene, partecipavano. Ho detto, un live come quello dei Monstrosity prima o poi si deve andare a vedere, perché è proprio il bello dell'energia, è un genere molto energetico. E quindi fondamentalmente è bello vedere comunque, nonostante le differenze, provenienze, situazioni diverse tutti quanti, il sudore, l'energia è sempre la stessa in vari posti, anche nei posti più impensabili c'è sempre spazio per l'heavy metal, per il death metal, e loro praticamente dici che sono andati in questi posti anche prima addirittura di artisti come Dio, sostanzialmente. Quindi per loro è proprio il bello di esplorare i posti tipo Porto Rico, che dice che hanno avuto un'accoglienza esagerata perché tante band non riescono ad andare lì, essendo un'isola piccolina, insomma, tante soddisfazioni si sono tolte, ha dato proprio il tour in questi posti.
Invece per quanto concerne appunto la situazione inverno
ha detto che lui è totalmente d'accordo con questa tua visione, ha detto all'inizio, ha detto non mi sento di aggiungere altro, perché da quanto ho capito, ho detto figo, perché è proprio quello che vogliamo fare noi. È un uomo di poche parole ma concise, e ti dice quando hai ragione, te lo dice subito.
Deve creare una jam session con altri 2 batteristi, fuori completamente dal death metal.
Okay, quindi una domanda prima dell'ultima domanda.
Sì, una jam session completamente folle.
Okay.
Togliendo il death metal, il jazz, scusate, che genere andrebbe a fare lì con gli altri 2 interpreti? E chi
altri 2 batteristi, quindi.
Sì, altri 2
Okay, Mr. Lee, a last question before the last question of the episode, since it's very curious, the Maestro, about your opinion on creating a kind of jam session with another 2 drummers to create something unique together. And if you have to pick, for example, you that represent a kind of death metal style, one for more jazzy and one more like fusion stuff, or what do you want to pick as a musician to create this kind of magic drum trio that you want to create in this kind of jam session stuff?
Sean Reiner, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Great musician.
Maybe the guy from Confessor. I don't know if you know who that is, Scott. The Watchtower drummer, maybe. I've jammed with Sean, and jam with Pete. That's always a good one, Pete Sandoval.
Great, Pete Sandoval.
So, yeah, there's a lot of guys that would be fun to jam with.
And basically, in your opinion, also running with the fantasy and your imagination, what kind of vibe you can create with those drummers that are connected together because they all play metal, but they all play metal in the different way. Which kind of sound they can create in this jam, in your opinion? Just with your imagination and.
You know, who knows? It could be pretty wild, I think, you know.
Okay. Which is also a great answer to that, by the way. But yeah, because Sean Reinhardt had a more elegant touch of playing the drums. Of course, Pete Sandoval was a pioneer of the genre, in my own opinion. So it's great to see all those kind of drummers that are different, but they have that kind of one roots that is to that metal. So it's good that wild. I think it's the appropriate word about the jam session. In my opinion. If you agree, we can.
There's other guys, Derek Roddy, Gene Hoagland. I mean, there's
yeah,
so
a lot of guys. Also, Derek is very fun dude. We interviewed in one of the first episodes that we got, and he was talking about 2 hours and a half, basically explaining how much he loves the drums. So it's very good to know the passion of the people that is not only play but also feel and live for the music. Great to know. Quindi ovviamente ha nominato ovviamente un po' Derek Roddy, Gene Hoagland, Sean Reinhardt, ovviamente ex Cynic che purtroppo non è più tra noi, che tra l'altro ha suonato, ovviamente ci dà Pete Sandoval e dice la cosa è wild, quindi selvaggia in italiano come risultato. Ok, so Miss Lee, thanks for your time. We got the last question.
Aspetta, se può rimanere dopo un attimo in linea, che lo
Okay, the Maestro asks if you can stay with us even after the show, so for greetings and asking you some things after the show, after the live stream. Just stay with us. Okay. Just few minutes, not we won't waste too much of your time. Okay, the last question is about the name of this podcast is called the Black Calice, il Calice Nero. For us, it's not like ritual stuff, but also a kind of beverage that we can stay together, link and chat and have a fun interview together, which I hope this was one of the... You enjoyed it, basically. Sorry, I'm starting to get trapped between Italian and English. I get a little bit confused. And in your opinion, which is the best drink that suits Monstrosity music? And you say, for example, a glass of this, you put the headphones, drink it, and basically link the beverage with your music. Which is the best drink?
It's pretty much whatever you like, you know. I can't really say, you know, I don't drink anymore, so I don't really have a particular alcoholic beverage, but whatever you like.
Even not alcoholic, because of course whenever we like, but we want to know your answer, your personal.
Whatever you like, you know.
Okay, so
people getting in their own mood and doing what they want to do and putting on the headphones.
Each one can have its own personal Monstrosity drink, basically.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, great to know that. And this is very cool because you care about even throughout the interview, the fact that each one can have his own vision, but the mission and the formula, which is the brutality, but also the wall of sound that only, in my opinion, Monstrosity can create like that. So with this great answer, which I really like, this kind of way of approach things, I will translate it and we will end this episode. Again, thank Mr. Lee and for representing Monstrosity and talk about this project. It was a really fun interview. Praticamente per lui tutti i drink possibili, se voi vi rispecchia il vostro modo di vedere i Monstrosity, quindi vi lascia tanta immaginazione. Con questo, Maestro, ricordiamo i prossimi appuntamenti che abbiamo.
Ricordiamo subito che ci sono appunto gli esoterici con Mr. Greg, quindi una intervista veramente molto interessante. Oggi abbiamo avuto un'altra costa fondamentale del death metal come Monstrosity. Quindi è fundamental music death metal Monstrosity, veramente fantastico. Quindi ragazzi, domani con gli esoterici dal death metal si passa al Cineral Doom. Preparatevi che maggio, giugno saranno delle puntate allucinanti con dei nomi tra i nomi più underground e i nomi più grossi. Si sta lavorando a nomi che penso vi piaceranno e che vi lasciano una bocca aperta sia i nomi piccoli sia i grandi. Ci sarà anche una scrittrice sull'occulto, sul satanismo, quindi andremo anche a ricercare queste situazioni qua che vanno a incanalare molto bene sia nel death che nel black metal. Ragazzi, ricordatevi sempre una cosa, che il grande spettacolo non si fermerà mai, i Malevolent Creation verranno ripresi, il codice sacro d'onore 000, la morte vi renderà liberi per sempre.
Okay, thank you guys for being with us, and good night. And see you in the next episode. Cheers.
Talk soon, guys.